Today on Sekulow, a brilliant retail politics moment by President Trump.
Keeping you informed and engaged, now more than ever. This is Sekulow. We want to hear from you. Share and post your comments or call 1-800-684-3110. And now your host, Jordan Sekulow.
All right, welcome to Sekulow. We're back in the studio here. We're taking your phone calls as well, 1-800-684-3110. 15 days out from the election, but many early votes coming in. Early vote numbers that are showing Republicans, conservatives are certainly engaging the early vote in a way that they haven't before, which is good news for all Republican candidates. Again, I always contrast that. The early voting is the same process as voting on Election Day. You're using the same systems, and you're using the same machine and the same kind of tracking, whatever your state does. And so, again, I always encourage people who are really involved, if you have that option, go vote now and then use Election Day to get out more voters and to make sure more of your friends, if somebody needs a ride and if the weather's not great, maybe they're elderly and they don't feel like they should be the ones driving the car, or they need some help, someone who can drop them off at the front, be with them for a little bit while they wait. Do things like that, if you're going to be at that level of activism, because you're then clearing up your schedule leading up until Election Day, and I think that's extremely important now. We see that, of course, Harris is continuing to engage more media. So on Wednesday, she's doing a town hall with CNN. This is still, probably you're getting closer and closer. Maybe 25, 30% of the votes are already being cast with early voting. And of course, I think when you add absentee into that, you're probably not halfway there yet, but you're getting close to that when you're just a couple of weeks out. But what made, I think, the biggest impact of the weekend, which was interesting, that it was the biggest impact of the weekend, which is the different ways President Trump showing up at a McDonald's in suburban Philadelphia and putting on the apron, going to work and talking. Of course, it was supporters going around. People were saying, oh, it wasn't like it was a real McDonald's. They had to shut it down. I was like, well, he's a president of the United States. He was a former president of the United States. They've tried to kill twice this campaign cycle. So, yeah, it was, of course, they couldn't just have random people walking in. There's security blocking on the streets. And if you look at the street image, I don't know if we have the shot of like the aerial. Oh my God, the amount of people who came just to get a glimpse of Donald Trump. And then, McDonald's. But it was interesting, the people they had come around, they had Indian Americans who are here, immigrants, Brazil, who said, don't let my country. And when you talk about those are countries where where the current president is a leftist who was in prison, and the former president who was conservative, they want to put in prison, Bolsonaro. So, I mean, when she said that, it resonates with exactly what Donald Trump is going through.
Fighting back against the concept that for some reason the MAGA movement is only defined by right. I will tell you this: I was at the grocery store on over the weekend, and there was an Indian family, Indian American family, obviously. All the men MAGA hats.
Yeah, okay. I was in West Virginia.
Everywhere.
It's not just the men.
Yeah,
it's everybody. I mean, we got a. I was at the Greenbrier GOP. They had 350 people show up. And this is not like, this is not a major, huge base county. And I just remember when I started working in Republican politics, even in like suburban Atlanta, which had bases of the Republican vote, and we had to work it to get 20 or 25 people to show up at something like this a couple weeks before the election. And now hundreds of people are showing up. They had all the signs available for you. For all the different candidates, top down, and we even brought home a mini Trump.
We also,
I do say it's a mini Trump. There's one of the pictures of me has it in the background.
Like an inflatable?
It's about the size of my 4-year-old daughter.
What is this made out of?
It's made out of
it's just
that vinyl cardboard.
Oh, like a sign, like a yard sign. Okay, I was confused when you said that.
But he's like about 3 feet tall.
That's pretty fun. Look, well, voting's already underway in most places, and that we've seen record turnout as well. As we are just 15 days away from the election. And, of course, we're going to talk about that sort of viral moment that happened.
Yeah, I mean, the left calling it like, what's wrong with Donald Trump? Is he losing his mind? And the fact is, no, he's showing that he talks to working people. He's able to talk to working people. And Harris and Waltz screw that up every time they try.
All right, phone lines are open for your calls, 1-800-684-3110. What do you think about that in that moment at the Harris rally, where Jesus is Lord was yelled out, and what was the response? Give us a call. We'll be right back.
Kamala Harris is having to deal with protesters at some of her, and if you watch some of these rallies, you start to think maybe the wheels are starting to come off just based on what she's saying.
We remember Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade, and they did as he intended. Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally. No, I think you meant to go to the smaller one down the street.
So somebody said Jesus is Lord. Obviously, these were pro-life protesters who were at her rally, and her response was, Jesus isn't here. You need to go to that other rally where they like Jesus.
The current presidential candidate doesn't want to hear dissent about abortion, mocks those people, and skips the biggest Catholic dinner in the United States, which every candidate has gone to. So I think it's pretty telling where she is and what she's saying.
You can't think of a Democratic candidate, I don't think in our history, Barack Obama or Joe Biden included, no Democrat would respond in that moment the way that she responded. You have to understand the gravity of that response.
Someone cries Jesus is Lord at a Democrats rally, and they're immediately told by the party's presidential candidate that they're at the wrong rally. What does that say about the Democrats and their beliefs and their views?
I think what we might be seeing here, Rachel, is really a watershed moment where this long-time tradition of many Catholics voting for Democrats have finally said, I didn't leave the party left me. And they are now looking seriously at Donald Trump, not just on a lot of the obviously traditional social issues like life and religious liberty, but on the border, on the economy, and on, frankly, just our Catholic way of life. I think they feel comfortable with President Trump, and they don't feel so with Kamala Harris.
All right, welcome back to Sekulow. We are taking your calls, too. Give us a call, 1-800-684-3110. So, Logan, the big newsmaker was kind of how they spent their weekends. And President Trump, so he's in the suburban Philadelphia, also hit the Steelers game last night. Yep. And kind of shows his schedule, too. I mean, this whole idea that, he's not up for the job that time. And he's going from 6 a.m. till 11 at night. He's hitting, multiple football games, college football games. He's serving at McDonald's. So that was the key one. He shows up at McDonald's, not just to, which he's done before, I think. Yeah. And bought, everybody's meal and things like that. But this time, the franchise owner, the supporter, let him go behind the counter. Yeah. Fry some fries and then work, which I think he actually, honestly, I think it is a position he would love.
He seems to enjoy it.
Which is the working the
fries?
No, working
the drive-thru.
The drive-thru and getting to do the window.
Yeah.
Because then you get to talk to different people. Yeah. Every minute and a half, you got new people coming by.
He seemed like he was having a blast. Of course, this was in response to Harris always talking about being an employee at McDonald's, but Trump has pushed back upon that.
She admitted it from her real bio, which is not in her book. Yeah. And she talks about her whole time at Howard University, scraping by, but never talks about actually working at McDonald's. Yeah. And, it's one of those things where, if you did, you would have done it in the book because it's something that a lot of Americans around that age group.
1 in 8 Americans has worked at McDonald's.
Including our mom.
Yeah, of course. It's probably the most common job.
It was one of the tougher jobs. She said people don't realize how hard it is, like the fries and all that, which haven't changed that much. Yeah. And, people getting hurt. And working those registers. This was back before technology with lots of people coming in, a new idea of this fast food thing. So even if you were young when you did it, you still remember it in detail. Yeah. And that experience. And so if that's like that for our mom, you think it would be like that for Harris too. Again, her own family and friends said, well, she just didn't talk about it to us. So we never really heard about it either.
Yeah, I think
maybe she was embarrassed or something.
That's the common story right now. And Trump's obviously response was then he said, I've worked 15 minutes longer now than Vice President Harris at McDonald's. So, of course,
he put on the apron.
And look, I have to say, McDonald's put out what was probably one of the better corporate statements I've ever seen. And I can maybe pull that up and I'll read some of it, which was maybe one of the most unifying American moment that we're like, we're fine with President. We love President Trump coming there. We love that Vice President Harris says she works here. They did say we don't keep records of individual franchise employees from the 80s. We have no way of proving that. But, they said that we are not red or blue. We are golden. And it has become a tradition in America for presidents or presidential candidates to stop by and visit a McDonald's, be a part of it, because it is Americana, because it is that 1 in 8 Americans has been employed by them.
I mean, Bill Clinton started running
his whole thing.
He started running so he could justify eating a Big Mac.
Yeah.
Once a week. And like remember he'd go take the Secret Service out and run through D.C. to his McDonald's.
It is interesting that you're running on Make America Healthy, the Maha people, and then you're also at a McDonald's, but you know what? I'll give it a pass. I don't care. I like McDonald's.
I think it's everybody's kind of like their cheat meal.
Yeah.
It's also a reminder of being a kid. It's always those kind of things.
Yeah.
You know, so it's comfort food. He likes it because, one, it's simple. When you're flying around 20 different states, at least you know what it's going to taste like.
Consistency.
Yeah. Consistency is important. I mean, you know, he's not Mark Wahlberg. He's not going to just eat grilled chicken and matcha or whatever at 4 a.m. club. So,
yeah.
Hurry is up.
We are going to take your phone calls at 1-800-684-3110. This, of course, also happened to be the weekend where Harris decided being a Christian nationalist was okay. She appeared at a church. She, did a worship service, did a whole thing. This was after that. I mean, those are the moments where you go.
After she told the Christians to go to another rally.
Yes, after someone who yelled out about Jesus, I think you're at the wrong rally. And, of course, that then spun into, we need to fix this.
So
let's put her at a church.
I know Waltz did, too.
Here to a church.
He went to a church in Michigan. So they both said, well, we better run to church, which, by the way, again, if that's your reason for going, it's not the best. It's kind of obvious.
Yeah.
Why? Is because you've got this story coming out. So I'd love to hear people's
a week before
thoughts
the election.
On her immediate reaction is she looks over to that group and says, you're in the wrong place if that's what you believe. And now there were some pro-life messages that you don't pick up in the video.
For sure.
She may have been referring to that, but okay.
Either
also,
way.
saying that there's no space for people who are pro-life, which we've said, who even question late-term abortion inside the Democrat Party. And Tulsi Gabbard was somebody we brought on our team who said that over and over again. If you questioned at all any kind of abortion access, you could no longer be part of the party.
Yeah, and I think there's a big portion of that are sort of the more liberal Catholic-leaning group. That, of course, she did not attend that event, but you have that group that is still pro-life, even if they're Democrat voters. Yeah. Now, do I think the people yelling out were that? Probably not. These probably were people going out there to make a statement. But when your response is, I think you're at the wrong rally, go to the smaller one down the street, ha, 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 ha.
Yeah, if you're going to shout, you're going to get removed. I don't mind that so much as she decided to engage them, and she engaged them with, mocking them for what they said. I think that was just a bad moment, piled on with another bad moment, which is the left trying to attack Donald Trump for being at the McDonald's. You want to go to? Can we show people if they may have missed it? This just I thought it was a genius moment on the campaign trail where we've got Donald Trump inside the McDonald's, suburban Pennsylvania, very important county, Bucks County, and surrounding area to determine who's going to take Pennsylvania. So let's go to it.
Well, this is a great job to take at the beginning, and it requires expertise. I'm going through the French fry stuff. It's a whole big process, and it requires great expertise actually to do it right and to do it fast. Yeah.
You appreciate the Donald format. You appreciate the Donald format.
Well, I do appreciate it. Maybe a little bit more. Yeah. You take it for granted. You say, "Give me French fries." I'll never forget this experience. Okay. Now I know how to do it, and it's very good. But you know what? It's beautiful. It's clean. It's really nice. You never touch them. I always figured somebody stuffs them in with their hand, and I don't like that. And they don't do it that way. You never touch them. It's really great. So I want to thank you all for coming out, and we're going to see you soon. We'll see you at the next stop, and then we'll see you later on at the game.
So, there you go. I told you he was going to love working that window. I think he literally said, I love doing the window.
That is 1 minute of what was probably half an hour of footage of talking to people, learning. It was a really fun watch. And I say that as someone who enjoys this kind of media where they are really getting down to sort of the granular level. On the other side of it, you had Harris, making it was supposed to be a big event with Lizzo over the weekend. And Harris spoke for 6.5 minutes. Now, you can converse that with Trump, who maybe spoke, typically will end up speaking for 2 hours or plus in some of these events. But you could tell they're nervous. They're putting her out there for 6.5 minutes. They are sending her to church. They're doing this moment because the polls are really starting to indicate. Now, that doesn't necessarily say one way or the other, but they're starting to indicate a Trump-leaning moment here, whether that's in the early voting, massive turnout in early voting. I went to our precinct here. I voted last week, and the person at the poll said they had, and this is like in a small suburb, said they had 2,000 people every day, and that was she said, beyond imaginable compared to previous elections.
And let me tell you, in that suburb, that's Republicans.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So the fact is, they got the message that we're telling people, which is early voting is different than absentee voting. Absentee is a last resort. I mean, you only do that if you really do think you're going to be out of town, and even through this early voting period, or that you're someone who is at the hospital, something like that, military, etc. But voting early, it's the same machine, the same process, and then you're opened up now to people that have issue. Everybody's got issues on election day. You can help them out. And you know what? You're not going to have to wait in a 3-hour line. You don't have to worry about doctor's appointments. You don't have to worry about your kids being sick or your parents getting sick or you getting sick. I mean, it's kind of like all of that. Get your vote in, and then it frees you up to get more people out to vote.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to again take some more calls at 1-800-684-3110. The election is just 15 days away, and this is an important time to really support the work of the ACLJ as well. You've heard now attacks on the Christian faith of those going to that rally. You have seen them sort of pivot and say, oh, now it's okay to be a Christian in America because we're trying to get more votes in. But we know the ACLJ has to be there to defend true Christian faith. You can do that right now by helping us at aclj.org. It's a very important time. Obviously, the election is only a few days away, and your time, your resources may be diverted. But know right now, we are battling this war on faith in courts around the country. And we have so much going on. And I encourage you to support the work of the ACLJ. These last few months of the year are always the most important months. And even though we can get distracted by what's going on in Washington, D.C., we need to make sure we are there to support you around the country. You can become an ACLJ champion as well. Thousands of you have. And that is people that give on a monthly recurring basis. So do that at aclj.org/champions, or just go to aclj.org and you can opt in. And that's, you can cancel anytime. Donations are tax deductible. It's a great way to support the work of the ACLJ, give us an incredible baseline. And when these kind of hectic times happen in this country, to know that we have that base is incredibly important. Yeah. So I'm going to encourage you to do that.
And folks, we are planning not just for the legal work going into Election Day or on Election Day, but the legal work that follows sometimes after Election Day, all the way sometimes leading up to the swearing in of the next president of the United States. And that if there is a conservative victory or a Trump victory, I'm looking at that victory from the time that possibly that they call the win and the actual inauguration as an extremely dangerous time where we've got to be ready to go at the ACLJ. So your support makes sure that we're ready to go and do whatever we need to do legally here in the United States to ensure that the person who wins is the one taking the oath in January. Support the work of the ACLJ today at aclj.org.
Early voting has started in most states, including here in Tennessee. And we saw in Michigan, as Will brought up, that even the Arab American community, which I think if you actually, it seems like this always with Democrats, like when you actually get down to dealing with people on a one-on-one basis and you stop this, all black voters, all Arab voters, all white voters, all female voters, all male voters, when you stop, breaking everything down into, well, of course, if they, fit one of these things, they're going to vote one way or the other. What we are seeing is that is not the truth. And it's never been the truth. And it's certainly not in the modern media age. And it's certainly not when it comes to President Trump. And we've seen that even, like you said, in the Arab community in Michigan, where we've now seen even popular restaurants and places that are really the heartbeat of that community all saying, no, we're not voting for Harris. Even though it's always that moment where, again, it feels racially motivated to just go like, how dare they not vote the way we want them to vote?
It's really nasty when politicians say that because of your particular race or particular ethnicity or have a particular background that you must think a certain way. That is deeply un-American, and we've seen this in spades. We saw what President Obama said when he was out campaigning last week, talking about how the brothers need to get out and vote. It's just that's just the nastiest to not think that they're gonna evaluate this on their own, think about this themselves, whether that's in the Arab American community in Michigan or in the Appalachian Mountains of West Virginia. These are individuals with all the human dignity that comes with that, and they're going to have different judgments no matter what their ethnicity, what their background, what their race is. And that's one of the great things about America, and we're seeing that in the polling too. People are thinking about this in a way that is not connected to the traditional ideas that these folks who put race in front of everything else have often thought would happen.
to Sekulow. We are going to take your calls. People are calling in. So we want to take a lot of calls today. So as we're working through getting those ready to take at 1-800-684-3110, we did want to take a moment to talk about what else is happening around the world. And, of course, a lot happening in Israel since Yahya Sinwar was taken out. He was the person put in charge of Hamas after Ismail Haniyeh was taken out in Tehran when he left the comfort of Doha, Qatar. And then you saw Yahya Sinwar emerge from the caves with a couple other fighters, was identified by IDF patrol. He had been given no longer just the military leadership of Hamas, but the full leadership of Hamas. So right now there's a question about who is in charge. Is it going to be one of these guys that's left out in Doha? Is it somebody on the ground in Gaza? I think Yahya Sinwar in his letters said, if anything ever happens to me, there should be some committee put together. But there's also, of course, Hezbollah leadership that is falling by the wayside very quickly as well. But then this leak, and I want to go to Jeff Balaban on this right away, who oversees our office, ACLJ Jerusalem. And Jeff, this leak from our Defense Department, and it's a U.S. assessment of how Israel might carry out a attack on Iran from the air, but also including long-range ICBMs. And that a document ends up on Iranian Telegram, the chat service. And while the Department of Defense is always very cautious about saying if it's 100% accurate or not, they did apologize to Israel. So that gives you an indication that at least some of what was leaked was information that should not have been made public or gotten into the hands of not just Israel's enemy, but the enemy of the United States.
Yeah, Jordan, look, cutting through the diplomatic rhetoric of apologies and trying to soft pedal this is potentially a crisis of major global proportions. I mean, we're talking about a terrible enemy of the United States, of the West, obviously has called for the destruction of Israel, a power that stands on the brink of Iranian nuclear power, potentially nuclear weapons, with delivery systems, with the stated intention of eradicating Israel, with the stated intention of death to America. And here we have what seems to be a leak from within the Department of Defense, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, to a pro-Iranian account. And of course, this is on the heels of the last couple of years of profound concern that some of the officials in high levels, very sensitive levels of the American Intelligence Committee have ties to Iran, and including within this agency. And there's a question of whether or not it's come through one of them. We don't know. We know this is a very serious moment as Israel is fighting an existential war against a major enemy.
Yeah, we saw, again, a major Hezbollah target, which was their intelligence headquarters in Beirut, taken out. And, of course, you could see the imagery of it. You see the Mediterranean. You could see the size of Beirut and also. But it was a tactical strike on this Hezbollah headquarters, but also a message to the Lebanese people, Jeff. And it's one that's consistent. Also one that's been consistent to the UN forces that are supposed to be preventing Hezbollah from making progress closer to Israel and from being able to arm in Lebanon's south. Listen, if you are going to allow Hezbollah to put their intelligence center in the center of Beirut, you're putting a target on your own people, whether they support Hezbollah or not.
That's right. Israel continues in its practice, which did not start after this war was launched against Israel on October 7th. Which is now a seven-front war of active attacks against Israel from the north, from the south, from way over, in the east. This is a seven-front war that Israel is fighting, and Israel has always been very careful to try and minimize non-combatant casualties. Israel remains that way, more so than any nation in the world, and yet the world keeps on complaining, keeps on criticizing Israel, and Israel has learned just keep doing what it's doing. And thank God it seems to be having great success under very, very dangerous circumstances. And I will say this, for this audience especially, the people of Israel, the soldiers of Israel, they recognize clearly that it's not just them, that God seems to be standing with them in this fight.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of press this weekend also over the fact of the attempted assassination of Prime Minister Netanyahu, and I wanted to get your thoughts on that. I mean, it seemed like another one of those moments where it gets very real, very serious. Of course, this happened at his residency while he was not there. So as always, when these moments happen for Israel, we downplay it. It seems like in society, we downplay it and go, "Oh well, it's like if they shoot 100 rockets, it's fine because we know Israel's going to knock down 99." It seems like this is the same kind of story with this attempted assassination attempt.
Yeah, listen, famously, David Ben-Gurion, Israel's first prime minister, who was a self-avowed, secular, non-believing Jew, he always said, to live in Israel means to believe in miracles. There's no other way to believe in Israel's continued existence. And this past year, as painful as it's been, and it's been nonstop pain and trauma, has also seen moments of true, miraculous greatness. And you just mentioned a couple of them, and they're ongoing.
Yeah, I mean, I think, listen, the idea that Netanyahu was targeted at his private home, which is on the coast of Israel, north of Tel Aviv. Again, he wasn't there. His wife wasn't there, and the drones did not even get close. But we now know, because I think to Hezbollah taking out their leader Nasrallah, that was like their prime minister.
Yeah, that's what's happening here. They're responding,
taking out the Hamas leadership by Ismail Haniyeh, and then right away when they appointed someone new, Yahya Sinwar, who thought, who mostly we're now seeing the images of how he hid out in caves because he had all this tech and kind of bed set up, TV set up, so he could monitor things and basically run food and everything. But obviously those tunnels are no longer safe, and he tried to emerge with false documents, money, cash to try and get out
as an UNRWA employee.
Yeah, as a UN employee, of course. And but again, in his final moments, in a chair, throwing a stick at a drone. So. Again, Hamas right now is definitely in crisis. Hezbollah, remember, they tried to appoint 2 new people as leaders. They were both taken out the moment they were announced. So I think that at the end of the day, Jeff, what is positive for supporters of Israel is what you said in the beginning, which is Israel has kind of said, you know what, world, we've got to defend our own people. We have a unique moment. And I think what Israel's done, starting out, with the pagers, just this kind of new way of targeting, it is reinstalling that necessary belief that if you mess with Israel, including like October 7th on the larger scale, that they're going to hit back in ways that you can't even possibly try and imagine.
Yeah, Jordan, 100%. Israel never wanted any of this. Israel has wanted all along to live in peace. Israel has sacrificed more for the possibility of peace, even a cold peace, than any nation possibly in history, certainly in the modern world. And yet all these people want us to destroy it. And it's important to recognize Israel is a very small country compared to its enemies. Its enemies are vastly larger. It's the armies are vastly larger. The forces arrayed against it are vastly larger. And again, thank God, as difficult and as brutal as the circumstances with these basically civilian population fighting a war now, because these are all people in reserves who are fighting a war. Thank God we've seen a tremendous amount of success in fighting against these enemies.
Jeff, thank you for the update. Again, ACLJ Jerusalem is going to be on top of things as we work through our election, which has significant consequences for the state of Israel, good and bad, depending on how this election turns out. So support the work of the ACLJ, and we're doubling down, preparing for Election Day, following Election Day, getting to the inauguration, all of that work. So support our work at aclj.org. Donate today, and it's a great time to be an ACLJ champion with that recurring donation, because we've got to be ready to go for anything possible. Some people think champions are born, that it's a title that requires something only a handful can ever possess.
There are times in our lives that we are called, every one of us, to step up and serve a cause greater than ourselves.
Even when the loudest voices in the room say it's wrong, that it can't be done. It can be a difficult stand, but it's one any of us can make, including you.
You can be the change. You can make that difference.
You can be a champion. We cannot do what we do without you.
By becoming a monthly donor, you can become a champion of life.
A champion of liberty, a champion of freedom.
Please join us. Become an ACLJ champion today.
Keeping you informed and engaged, now more than ever. This is Sekulow. And now your host, Jordan Sekulow.
All right, folks, we want to take a lot of calls. 1-800-684-3110. We've played, again, this Donald Trump at McDonald's. Have we played yet the MSNBC reaction, which was, to me, it's like, we really do live in two different countries right now. I mean, depending on where you get your news, because I think Republicans and kind of like everyday Americans who are not even that political see it as kind of a nice thing to do and like
in a moment it's very normal politics.
Yeah,
like,
and MSNBC freaks out like, why would you ever do that?
Like he's lost his mind because he has gone to a McDonald's.
Even Drudge Report, which is not, Drudge has never been that big with Trump.
Yeah.
Tried to use it as like, made him like look like the Ronald McDonald makeup. I'm like, no, I was like, I just don't think you're getting why he was able to win the first time.
Right.
Is that he can connect to people who care about that $5 value meal. And
Absolutely.
There's a reason why McDonald's has kept it.
Let's play MSNBC's response.
Yeah, it's wild.
Go ahead.
If you're on his campaign, and I know you are certainly not, I'm not making any implication of that, but what is the logic behind this, going to a McDonald's? I mean, we know the guy likes Big Macs and filet of fish, and he's used the word love to describe the way he feels about the food there before. But what's this about?
There's no logic to it. It's a stunt. He has not put forth an economic agenda. He, as you know, appears to be not well, and he's engaged in some really bizarre types of activities during this campaign. So this is just another one of those stunts that he will continue on through the campaign. And I think that we need to really focus on making sure that he is not elected, of course, because he is a threat to our democracy, but also...
here's the thing. MSNBC does understand that for a lot of middle-class voters, even if you're hurting economically, you can usually afford to get your kid maybe a treat, maybe a Happy Meal at McDonald's. They actually follow the economy very closely. That $5 value meal has been extended through the end of the year because of the economy, so that people can get more food for less. And I think when they say, like, why would he even go there? Why would you spend your time? Because people, they're saying, like, they're disgusted by McDonald's.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is what happened also. If you remember, there was that Anderson Cooper clip after January 6th where he goes, these people are all going to return back to their courtyard Marriotts or something like that, and they're all, go have Olive Garden tonight. And, yeah, it's completely disconnected from the real world of what's actually happening. And by the way, not in lower class America, in suburban America. Just normal America is going to McDonald's or to the Olive Garden or wherever.
You're not going to Olive Garden if you're really, really economically hurting. No. I mean, again, those places get more popular when the budgets get tighter because you can still take your family out to eat. And, you get your unlimited salad and breadsticks.
And, of course, McDonald's got some pushback. They put out a statement. I'm going to read part of it. It says, earlier today, former President Trump visited a McDonald's restaurant in Pennsylvania following a request made to our local franchise. We'll skip down a little bit. McDonald's does not endorse candidates for elected office, and that remains true in this race for the next president. We are not red or blue. We are golden. Though we are not a political brand, we've been proud to hear former President Trump's love for McDonald's and Vice President Harris's fond memories of working under the arches. While we in our franchise don't have records for all positions dating back to the early 80s, what makes 1 and 8 so powerful is that the shared experience so many Americans have. Upon learning upon the president's request, we approached it through the lens of one of our core values. We open our doors to everyone. Yeah. So, and then you can continue on. Great statement by McDonald's, by the way. They did they really.
And they asked, like, why else did he do it? I mean, how many times have you seen the imagery? Him out the window. I got the shirt. Again, it's on his campaign site, but it's become an image that people share. It's already a T-shirt.
Yeah, it's almost as iconic, weirdly, as the assassination attempt photo. It's similar. Seeing it. It's a little more palatable.
You can get either one.
Yeah.
On the website. You can also get the dark MAGA hat now.
I know. I saw
that.
Yeah,
I ordered.
Elon's going out there giving $1 million.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not a registered voter in swing state.
Yeah, you can't go. So,
but I think what he's doing, I've always said we needed a George Soros. He's not yet there on like a fully taking all of his money and saying this, but he's getting closer and closer. And I think if he can see the impact that his resources can use, getting to a guy like that who thinks big and thinks bigger than you can think about DAs, races, and all that stuff. Why Soros is able to have that impact. We need it on our side. I mean, the Democrats raise a lot more money from billionaires than Republicans do, and that's clear from the Harris fundraising. And we need your support.
At a campaign stop in Feasterville, Donald Trump worked the drive-thru window at a McDonald's that was otherwise closed for the morning. He handed out food to pre-selected supporters in 5 cars, as hundreds of other fans tried to catch a glimpse of him from across the street.
I came to see our God, the Savior, Mr. Trump.
Our God, the Savior?
Yes.
Trumpers. We are Trumpers. I hope to taste the fries he made. He was humble. He made fries.
Most importantly for us here, it's to show that we support him in Pennsylvania. This is a battleground state.
And I think that human connection is important. I think the real human connection here it really is this man wants to be president of the United States, and there's a lot of people out there who are in a part to full-time minimum wage hourly job that requires some labor, and they have aspirations to do something else one day. And they can go and vote for someone who at least at one day in his life understood what that means.
This guy's a good instructor. I appreciate it. Wow, I'm going to give a really big one so that, look at that, they're just pouring out of it. How good is that, Margot? Here, Margot, have them. She's been with me a long time.
There are some questions about whether Kamala Harris has actually worked there. And Snopes, which is a fact-checking service, actually looked into it. She has claimed this multiple times, probably to be relatable. And they said this about it. That says, Harris claims she had a job at McDonald's while in college. Here's what we found. Quote, there was no tangible evidence of Harris working at McDonald's as a college student. We reached out to the Harris campaign, as well as McDonald's headquarters, seeking tax records and other proof. And we reached out to Harris's sister, Maya, as well as a close friend from Howard University, seeking comment, and looked for public interviews by friends or family members of Harris's to confirm the story, with no luck.
All right, we are back. And as we said, we are going to go to the phone. So, Logan, let's go right to him.
Yep, give us a call. We got 3 lines open, 1-800-684-3110. 3110. 684-3110. It's a great time. It's a great time to get on the air. Carmen's calling from California, listening and watching on ACLJ.org, which you can do every day. Carmen, you're on the air.
Hello, gentlemen. I have a few questions in regards to the voting. I'm sure many voters would like to know, like I do. I keep hearing vote early, and some states are already voting. I wanted to do that last week, but then I received a piece of mail saying I can't vote until October 26th. Starting, is that accurate?
So in California, different counties have different early voting rules. You can go to your Secretary of State, the Secretary of State's website on ways to vote, if you Google that or search engine that. But you should have received a ballot. Did you receive a ballot? Because every California voter was supposed to receive a ballot in the mail. Did you receive that one?
I did receive a ballot, and I had also a question in regards to that.
So here's the thing: you can fill out that ballot, and then you can return it to your county board of elections. So you go to usually it's the county office, and inside that county office, the board of elections is on one floor, and you could return it to them directly. So you would actually know that you handed it in, that you turned in your ballot. There might be other ways to turn the ballot in. I would think that the best way to do it is to actually take my ballot and hand it to a real person and know that, it got taken, that, everything was filled out right, and that you've gotten that early vote done, so that you don't have to wait until election day. Now, places are different, though, on when you can actually go in and early vote. And some of those in California require you to bring in your ballot and to turn that in so that you're not trying to vote twice. So I think for you right now, if you want to get this done early, use the ballot that you've got mailed to you. Go to your county offices, the Board of Elections, and turn it in when you've completed it. And spend a little time talking to them. Don't just drop it off. Have them look at everything and make sure the right things are checked, the right boxes are checked, even the right ink color was used. So you can even ask those questions, and they've got to answer them for you. And by the way, if you have difficulties with that, if anybody does have difficulties with that, go to aclj.org/help, because we can, on the show, we can only get down so far. We have so much time. But our attorneys can quickly get you the answers you need. If you're having questions about what I can and can't do or where should I go, aclj.org/help. We can certainly get you the basic information. If you're still having trouble or they're not accepting what they're supposed to do, we can intervene.
Yeah, I actually saw it happen when I went to go early vote. I've already voted last week.
Yeah.
And there was a guy in front of me who had recently relocated from California, and he was just very confused of whether he could vote, he didn't have his driver's, he'd gone through, and they were working with him to figure it out. I don't know what the final result was. I had already moved on.
Sometimes you vote, you use one of the ballots that is, you can go and
like
have the election corrected.
Whatever they call it. Yeah, that happens, but I saw it happen in person. They will help you out.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go ahead and continue on. Chris is calling from Ohio, who is watching on the ACLJ app. So a lot of ACLJ viewers and listeners today. Thanks, Chris. You're on the air.
Thank you for the work that you guys do. I have a comment in regards to Kamala Harris' response to the young men shouting out, "Jesus is Lord." A couple things. Number one, she could have responded anything, but what she responded was from her heart. And according to God's word, out of the heart, the mouth speaks. And I am praying that America...
I 100% agree with you, Chris. I'm going to play it for people so they know what you're talking about. I think most people probably do. But I also say this, I've worked on a lot of presidential campaigns. Even President Trump, when people start shouting, has, for the most part, may make a comment about the shouting people, but he really lets the crowd do what the crowd knows how to do, and the staff there, which is you start a chant.
Yeah, drown them out.
You drown them out. The candidate just is quiet for a second. The people are out, and you move on. Because usually trying to go off the cuff this late in the election and try to attacking normal people from the stage as a presidential candidate doesn't look great, especially when you directly attack. Let's play it.
With the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade, and they did as he intended. Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally. No, I think you meant to go to the smaller one down the street.
So already you're not welcome here because, and again, they shouted things out. You're going to get tossed out of a campaign event. That's normal.
She's the one who told people to go to Trump rallies, though, remember? During the debate?
Right.
Go to a Trump rally. See what it's like.
Right.
Then someone showed up to her rally. Oh, get him out of here.
And say, there's no place for you. If you believe in Jesus and you're pro-life, you must be in the wrong location because you can't be a Democrat anymore. So clear message right there.
Until Sunday when you're showing up at church. It's fine.
Well, she showed up at church Sunday, yes, and Walls did. And I'm not saying I think it's both those things. A pro-life Christian is pretty tough to find a place inside the Democrat Party, and we've talked to a lot of former Democrats who felt like there was just no place left for them to even express those views of both faith and even questioning, how far abortion laws should go, like late-term abortion, things like that. So, again, I think it was one of her worst moments of the last few weeks. With Anderson Cooper this week, it could, again, be very dull and a bunch of word salad on Wednesday, or it could be disastrous.
When does it start turning? And we can find this out with early voting happening, and so many people have voted already. When does it stop becoming even a reason to go doing these?
The reason she's sitting down with Liz Cheney right now in Pennsylvania, and Liz Cheney, which so I'm not even going to go through the list, but talking about sitting down with people who would still like to probably put your father in prison for war crimes,
right?
And so that's disgusting to me. But on top of that, why is she doing that? She's down. So she's not doing retail politics.
Yeah, polls are showing
she's still having to sell her self back to voters. So, whereas Donald Trump is going to transition to a lot more retail politics and some rallies, things like that, but quicker moments, 3 or 4 states in one day, and getting people out, knowing that people have heard the issues now over and over and over again. And if you want to find out about them, you can find it. But she's still having to get out there and convince people that she is even up to being president of the United States. I think that's her first problem. Her second problem is then, what does she actually stand for? Because the first problem is if you can't answer questions, so you won't tell us what you stand for, people get nervous about that too, especially when the Middle East has not quieted down.
No. Absolutely not. Phone lines are open. We took some calls, so we have some lines open for you. 1-800-684-3110. We can talk about all the topics we brought up today, if you have anything else as well, whether that's questions about voter integrity, whether that's questions specifically about the McDonald's stop, or even the Harris moment, where, again, responds and essentially kicks people out of a rally for having a different point of view, and then has to backpedal that in some ways by showing up at church the next couple days. So give us a call at 1-800-684-3110.
I thought it was interesting that Walz has shown up at church in Michigan. She's shown up at church in Atlanta the day after, that criticism. Maybe it was already pre-planned. Maybe that's just a coincidence. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't want to start questioning someone's intention of why they would go or not go to church, but it does feel a bit.
I mean, what's funny, though, is why is MSNBC not saying that about Kamala? It's like, why would she waste her time going to church on a Sunday? Those people are not there for politics. Isn't that inappropriate to be there for politics? Because I guarantee you, if Donald Trump was in a huge evangelical church that was predominantly white, let's say, with thousands of people, like the church she went to was predominantly black with thousands of people there, I guarantee you that's what people in Mississippi say. They'd say, is he violating campaign law by being in a church and elections, and the pastor? Should the pastor should they lose their IRS tax status? But they never say that about the Democrat candidates showing up to these big churches, and you don't hear MSNBC mocking that.
No, that always ends up being the point. You have the MSNBC.
Like two different churches in America.
MSNBC and to even a lesser extent, but still in there, CNN, have become these outlets of lies. And it's really this bizarre moment. I think that's why you have a Tulsi Gabbard and you have RFK Jr. actually resonating with voters, because they aren't the people. I was watching a live video last night with actor Zachary Levi, and he talked about how those two are who convinced him essentially to become a Trump supporter, because he at least knew they were the unlikely voices. They were the unlikely voices to be supporting President Trump. But that's what turned him, because that's what it was. And because he knew that you were getting if you just watch MSNBC, of course you're going to believe that way. Because the way they talk about it, again, is demeaning, belittling to the American people and to the candidates.
Yeah, I mean, when I was speaking in West Virginia, I had a couple young guys come up to me. They were done with college. One is getting his master's and then probably going to law school at Georgetown. I saw that on my resume, and obviously they follow the work that we do. They really like our work, but they also want to impact the government. And so they were talking to me about their plans. And I think, again, they also feel like, how do I do this without totally isolating myself? Can I go to these schools anymore? Like if I do this at Georgetown, what was it like when you were there? And I said, you know what? Even though that wasn't that long ago, I'm not sure it's the same place as it was even a decade ago when I was there. So I mean, it can be a pretty tough place to be, but also good for your resume. So sometimes you have to keep your head down, be there, and take the action through the positions that you take. But it's encouraging to see. We're taking your calls again, 1-800-684-3110. Support the work of the ACLJ. Whether it's election integrity, we're on it, and we can help you. ACLJ.org/help. Donate today so we're ready to go.
Kamala Harris is having to deal with protesters at some of her, and if you watch some of these rallies, you start to think maybe the wheels are starting to come off just based on what she's saying.
We remember Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade, and they did as he intended. Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally. No, I think you meant to go to the smaller one down the street.
So somebody said Jesus is Lord. Obviously, these were pro-life protesters who were at her rally, and her response was, Jesus isn't here. You need to go to that other rally where they like Jesus.
The current presidential candidate doesn't want to hear dissent about abortion, mocks those people, and skips the biggest Catholic dinner in the United States, which every candidate has gone to. So I think it's pretty telling where she is and what she's saying.
You can't think of a Democratic candidate, I don't think in our history, Barack Obama or Joe Biden included, no Democrat would respond in that moment the way that she responded. 100%. You have to understand the gravity of that response.
Someone cries Jesus is Lord at a Democrats rally, and they're immediately told by the party's presidential candidate that they're at the wrong rally. What does that say about the Democrats and their beliefs and their views?
I think what we might be seeing here, Rachel, is really a watershed moment where this long-time tradition of many Catholics voting for Democrats have finally said, I didn't leave the party left me. and they are now looking seriously at Donald Trump, not just on a lot of the obviously traditional social issues like life and religious liberty, but on the border, on the economy, and on, frankly, just our Catholic way of life. I think they feel comfortable with President Trump, and they don't feel so with Kamala Harris.
All right, welcome back to Sekulow. We are taking your calls. McDonald's French fries is just on my mind. I mean, for days now.
Well, they're open. Usually they're open. You can find a location near you. I think there's like 6 within a mile here. So
and I like that he made clear their hands are not, no hand touching.
No hands are there. Like, this is a wild time with rhetoric. We know this. Do we have that from Rolling Stone? Do we have that image, Will? I don't know if we're talking about it. We don't have it. All right, we'll go to that. No, we do have it. Take a look at this headline from Rolling Stone magazine, which, by the way, I was a subscriber to for probably close to 20 years as someone who thought Rolling Stone was it was more liberal leaning politically, but they're from music. This is when you start talking about, is this inciting violence? This was the headline. This was last night, by the way, this came out. Trump's closing pitch to voters. I will let you die if you don't bow to my demands. That is the headline of Rolling Stone magazine. You wonder why people like Matt Taibbi are no longer welcome there. It is a really sad thing, because you read that and you go, okay, these are moments where we've had these assassination attempts. We've had this. That is all that is encouraging. Because you read the article. The article's a real, kind of swerve of how you could get to this point. They only did that for the headline.
No, I mean, the article was saying because of his EPA policy that with California and the wildfires, that if California is not going to follow the federal policy, which is to cut the underbrush, which is responsible for so many of those horrible forest fires that end up burning down homes, then the federal government can't keep coming in and bailing out everybody, repaying you to build houses when you are not going to take the steps necessary to prevent those fires from starting, at least do some of the work. And it's because environmentalists don't want the underbrush cut.
Right. And there's other things in there.
That's how he said they were getting, okay, that's one thing. That was about insurance.
Yeah, there was some that was a death penalty that continued on that they didn't, he didn't
right, like
pardon.
He sentenced someone to death, which he didn't.
No.
And this was someone who gruesomely murdered people. I think you could have gone either way. They decided, based off looking at it, that was not one they were going to step in and
it really has
commute down.
Nothing to do with what's in the article. It is It is a headline to grab attention, but also, like I said, to not inspire good things, to get you to be angry or concerned or panicked. And the problem is, if the wrong people read these kind of things, it sends it into a very, very bad message.
Listen, 2 assassination attempts that we know about. Probably more stuff going all around that's would be even scarier if you knew all about it. But 2 people actually made it close enough to actually shoot him, and one who was very close.
Yeah, but they're saying he will let you die if you don't bow to his demands.
Good.
All right, let's continue on, take some phone calls.
That's why I said if he wins at ACLJ, we're going to have to double down to get to Inauguration Day. I mean, yes, we got to win first, so let's focus on people voting. Then you've got to get to Inauguration Day. It's going to be a dangerous time. I say in America, I think for Donald Trump. And then you look at the House races and the Senate races that usually some of those aren't finished on election day. Some have runoffs and things like that. Well, you want to have as many senators there as possible so you can get in a cabinet that's actually going to be supportive of his issues. So all of that, I think it's going to be a very unique time in the country, and it's one where we can, again, you can celebrate, but also say, you know what, let's get to inaugural day, and let's get to this administration actually kicking off.
All right, let's go ahead and take some calls. Let's go to Anthony in Pennsylvania on line 1. Anthony, you're on the air.
When you played that clip of Kamala talking down to those people, it just showed how smarmy, snarky, and condescending she is. And you compare that to Trump going to the barbershop, going to McDonald's, all the places he's gone where he's relating to real people. She could never, ever pull those things off. And I just don't understand how people can't see the difference between the two.
Yeah, I think they are. I think that, there are obviously committed partisans who they don't really care about that. They're more about if you're left, if you're right. But I think that the voters who you're trying to convince this last 2 weeks that you were talking about, these are the voters that you're trying to get off and trying to get them to show up for you, who may not have voted ever before or maybe voted one time but didn't vote in the last presidential, whatever. And you got to come up with unique ways to kind of get in their head to remind them to vote and to take that next step. It's not so hard. At this point, you've talked to your base. Your base is going. So it's how do you find the extra votes, the extra 10,000, 20,000 votes you'd like in Pennsylvania? You go to places where people think, oh, it's interesting that Donald Trump can walk into a barbershop. he can walk into a McDonald's and he's not getting in fights with people. People aren't coming up and screaming at him. And he's able to speak the language because he's a construction guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of people who feel that way. You don't watch it, it doesn't feel inauthentic. It doesn't feel like Tim Walz with a shotgun. There's something funny about it, too, because he's almost living the little kid dream of working at McDonald's. Let's go ahead and take some more phone calls. Let's go to Bill, who's an ACLJ champion, on line 2. Bill, you're on the air.
Hi, guys. I was talking to my neighbor over the weekend. He's a canine police officer, so he does a lot of the rallies.
Yeah.
And Walz was in Michigan, and their goal was to get 150 people, and they weren't even close, so they had to call the local UAW and get volunteers to come over.
Right. I mean, this is a known move by Democrats, that a lot of their rallies are people that are kind of forced to be there, so a lot of union membership, which you can do in Michigan, you can make that call and get the 100 people over. So a lot of that, you see the buses that we've seen taking people into rallies. On the other hand, Donald Trump, they have to shut it off. I mean, sometimes a day before, they're like, we can't let anybody, people are camping out. So yes, it's different. Now, also VP candidates can read into it a little, usually don't get giant crowds. Yeah. What's interesting is that anything associated with President Trump right now, I mean, I'll tell you, when I spoke at the GOP meeting in Greenbrier County last week, there were 400 people there. This is Greenbrier County, West Virginia. And I remember the days not so long ago where getting 20 or 30 people into a room, I mean, it was tough. J.D. Vance wasn't there. I mean, Donald Trump wasn't there. It was just coming together a couple weeks out before the election, getting people pumped up, getting people excited. This also because a lot of people in West Virginia, which is probably will compete with Tennessee for the strongest Trump vote. They're right by Pennsylvania, so there's a lot of potential people that can volunteer and help the Trump campaign after getting out the vote in West Virginia. So they need, just to encourage people, and it's encouraging to see. But so we know that a lot of the Democrats' grassroots is phony. But we also know that there's a sizable chunk of the coast in America that's going to put up plenty of vote for Harris, and so there's got to be the middle of the country, and America's got to show up.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and take Linda, who's calling in Wisconsin, as our last call of the day. Sharon, I'm sorry we weren't able to get to you, but Linda, you're on the air.
Hi, good afternoon. I wanted to make a comment about President Trump being at McDonald's. When people think of Trump, they think, well, first of all, the Dems are upset because they didn't think of this. But when they hear Trump, they think Trump Towers, they think Mar-a-Lago. But they forget as a young man that he was with his father many times, going to the apartment complexes, collecting rent, and asking not just to collect rent, but asking these people if there were any issues in the apartment that had to be taken care of. And so he is definitely a businessman, and he's a down-to-earth with the local people.
I think, Linda, you grow up in New York, you grow up with a different kind of grit. You grow up with a different kind
even
of...
if you are wealthy,
exactly. It's a different world. It's way different than if you're living in the West Coast or even the Midwest. You're growing up in a different way that is a little bit more oddly down to earth in that sense. So I understand what you mean by that. That's going to do it for today's show. We appreciate everyone who has tuned in and watched. If you're brand new on our YouTube channel or on Rumble, we're going to ask you to subscribe. Hit that button. That really helps us out. It's absolutely free to you. But if you can support the work of the ACLJ, this is a great time to do it. Go to ACLJ.org. Join the thousands of ACLJ champions. Make a monthly recurring gift to keep us fighting for your liberties. Again, ACLJ.org/champions. Do that today. And, of course, we encourage everyone to get out there and vote. I mean, it's probably open in your town.
So said if you vote for Harris, it'll make the whole country like Detroit. Which Detroit is she talking about? We can talk about that tomorrow on the show. But support our work because, folks, we want to be ready to go. I don't think most of you would want where you live right now, and even if you're in the Detroit area, you understand, to be the Detroit of today. ACLJ.org. Donate today.